Hey Gus, how are you, man?
Like I'm I'm in my own mind. I psyched myself out right before we started
How so?
because I started thinking about how people like Zoom as a utility, Zoom as like a teleconferencing software has existed for a while. I've known about it. It's really
Oh
gotten
yeah?
popular since, COVID and the pandemic
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
But then I started thinking, I don't know who owns Zoom. Who owns Zoom? What is Zoom? Who is Zoom?
These are all great questions, and I have no idea how to answer them
Zoom is Zoom.
outside of it's Mr. Zoom who owns
it
Zoom.
was founded by Mr. Herbert Zoom back in the 20s. Back then they were a pickling company.
Yeah, Pickle Company, they've just slowly lucked into the name Zoom for a video conferencing software. It's amazing how that worked out.
So apparently they're their own company. They're traded on the Nasdaq. Is what I just
Yeah.
learned here. And over the
Mhm.
last 6 months, their stock price has gone whoo crazy up.
Yeah. Actually, let's take a look at it real quick. I'm extremely yeah. So right now their stock price is at $238.
On February 12th, which is 6 months ago, it was $88. So it's
See
gone up
that?
almost triple because of the pandemic.
Eh,
If so, let that be a lesson to you. The next time there's a global pandemic, invest in video conferencing software.
they were the first people I wanted to invest in, but hey, it also cost $88 to buy one piece of stock in their
That's
company,
true.
which is crazy. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
There are worse ones. There are more expensive ones, but $88 is still a lot of money. That's if for me everything's frame of reference of a video game. It's like that's a video game and a half, like a
Right,
full
right, right.
AAA retail title, one and a half retail titles.
Well, how's everything been going for you, man? Obviously, the pandemic came in and just swept the world, and now like because of Zoom, we get to talk now, which is great. So,
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I'm good.
oh, good, good,
Yeah,
good, good, good.
everything's fine here. But it's crazy to me how we always switch video like conferencing software, right? Who
Mhm.
decided? Sorry, I'm obsessed with Zoom right now.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Who decided in March that Zoom was the one? Why wasn't it Discord? Why wasn't it
Let me tell you why.
Google Meet?
I'm gonna tell you why. Hold on. Let me tell you. I'm gonna just Google video conferencing software, video conference software, and let's see what the first thing that pops up. It is. Oh, let's see. Okay, here the first thing pops up: 10 best digital online meeting tools. The
Okay, so
software
there's
you
10
need.
at least. They have the
Okay,
10 best.
listen. Okay, here's the shocker on this: is that Zoom's not even listed on this top 10 list.
Mm,
Right? Like think about GoToMeeting. They're missing out right now.
yeah,
Blue Jeans. Blue Jeans apparently is a video conferencing
never heard of
software.
it.
Yeah. Web meeting, GoToWebinar, Demo Desk, Loop Up. I mean, come on, these guys
Yeah.
are missing out.
By the way, Blue Jeans is a stupid name for a video conference software because I guarantee you nobody's wearing pants when they're doing video conference.
Hey, stand up. Let's see it. Let's go.
Wearing shorts.
Basketball shorts. Let's go. Short squad. Let's go. Let's go. Hey,
I've got,
I haven't worn jeans in 4 months, 5 months. It's been great.
it's been a while. It's also, we're in Texas. It's hot as hell. So you want to avoid wearing jeans whenever possible too.
This is true. This is true. It is hot as hell. Well, but you're down in Austin, which is it's like its own little separate corner of Texas, and then there's the rest of Texas,
Yeah.
which is so fun to watch.
Yeah, I've lived in Texas pretty much my whole life. So I mean it is what it is. I mean I think all places are like that where it's just different. I think the difference with Texas is so geographically large that those kinds of differences tend to stand out. It's what like 1,000 miles east to west.
I know because I drove it recently, which is nuts. It's
What did you drive? Like
well,
what distance? Where did you go?
we drove. Well, so I recently drove from Dallas to Lubbock, which is 5.5 hours, and then I drove from Dallas to the East Coast, all the way to the
Oh
beach line.
shit.
So we did all in. The Florida trip was 3,600 miles round trip, and that's man. I'll tell you what,
It's
dude.
a lot of driving.
It's a lot of driving, man. It was whipping it out. But yeah, Texas is pretty amazing. I feel like Texas gets a bad rap for when you see like the stereotypical stuff of Texas, it's the tumbleweeds and like a lot of stuff you see out in West Texas, right? The
Hmm.
oil fields and stuff. But Austin's beautiful. Like you got the hill country down there, you got the coastline. I mean, Galveston's not like the best beach in the world, but it's a beach. We
Yeah,
have coastline. So
sure.
it's Yeah, it's pretty diverse.
When I was a little boy, I grew up. I lived in Texas City for a little while, which is just kind of outside of Galveston.
Hmm.
And so, when I probably lived there between the time I was, God, if I had to guess, like 4 and 6 or so,
Hmm.
somewhere in that area. Anyway, when I lived there, we used to go to the beach all the time down in Galveston and in that part of Texas. And I just thought that finding tar on the beach was like every beach in the world. I thought that was normal, that you go to the beach and there's just like clumps of tar everywhere. It
Right,
wasn't until
right.
like later as an adult, I went to another beach. I was like, oh no, there isn't tar just all over the beach everywhere. So it's not the most beautiful beach in that area. There are better beaches in Texas. Just right there, it's a very industrial port.
It's like it's not the most beautiful beach, but it's our beach,
Right.
and and you gotta love that for sure. So, and that's great. Well, dude, I'll talk about beaches or Zoom or whatever the hell you want to talk about today. Like whatever you want to talk about, we're good. I just pick a topic. What do you got? What do you got back there?
I've been showing everybody this.
Oh, please.
So early in the pandemic, everyone was making sourdough.
Are you pickling pickles? Or
I'm making
cucumbers?
pickles.
Nice,
It's
nice.
got a label on it. It says the Great Pickle Experiment #1.
So, well, I mean, how long have they been in there?
I put them in on Sunday.
Oh,
So
okay.
It's my first batch of pickles ever. Here, I need to burp them today. Let's see if it makes a noise or not. I don't want to spill. I'm trying to be real careful.
You can do this.
I made a little noise. I don't know if the mic picked that up or
Oh,
not.
I got a little bit. Got a little bit.
Oh,
So,
shit. My weight fell. That's what the noise was. I'll deal with that later.
well, question. I mean, why not? Like, what you should be doing, Gus, is trying them as the pickling process happens.
Yuck.
I mean, it's just a cucumber, right? That's all it is.
Well, I don't like cucumbers.
Oh, but you like pickles?
I love pickles.
Yeah, that's the same.
I'm excited to eat those next week.
Oh, so it's a 2-week process.
Yeah, it's supposed to take 10 days.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So you have next week. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's the little things in life, Gus, that get you excited, and I love that.
Yeah, I'm worried now because my weight moved. I'll fix it after the podcast. I'm just keep looking at it.
Yeah, you sound like you sound like you went about 6,000 miles away all of a sudden.
Yeah, sorry. I'll get back on.
That's okay.
What's going on with the mic?
I don't know.
level's way down.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries at all.
Get back up.
There, that's nice.
There we go. That should be much better. I don't know. I guess maybe I clicked on something by accident there.
That's okay. It was the pickles.
Yeah, the pickles got me a little too excited.
No worries.
I don't understand this slider. Okay, I'm going to talk about something else.
Please.
In Audacity, there's that slider. What happened is I clicked on that slider. There's that slider for your mic level. And it got clicked and adjusted, so it went way down. And I think that's why I sounded much more quiet there.
I understand.
For a bit.
No worries. It's okay. So we are live on YouTube. This is the first time we've done this, and this is pretty exciting because I've never done a live podcast with you before. This is pretty riveting stuff. So we can truly go wherever we want. But I think most people who are intrigued, whether they're coming from Rooster Teeth or fans of RT or whatever, they want to hear about you. They want to hear about your humble beginnings. They want to hear about what you have. I mean, your thing is you're the master of podcasts. Right?
I've made a few podcasts in my day. Yeah.
Well, so what do you think? Okay, look, I am a handful of episodes, and I've done a mini podcast as well. I did almost 554 episodes of side scrollers back in the day.
That's a lot.
We did Try Hard. We did a lot of episodes, right? But I'm starting over now. How has the podcast game changed, and what can I do to boost up them charts, Gus?
I think right now, it's difficult. There's more podcasts than ever, and with the pandemic, you would think that people have more free time to listen to podcasts, but that's actually counterintuitive. Across the industry, podcast consumption is down because people aren't commuting anymore. I haven't looked at a number here recently, but I looked back in May, I think, and at that time, average podcast consumption was down industry-wide between 25 and 30%, which is pretty significant. And then on the flip side, since people are at home, there's more podcasts starting. So it's like you have more podcasts with less consumption. So right now it's brutal. It's really difficult to try to stand out. And there's so many like niche podcasts, like if whatever you can imagine, there's someone's making a podcast for that. So it's about really finding your audience, and speaking true to them, like being authentic to the message and, just really conveying a message that people want to hear. I mean, like I said, there's there's an audience for just about everything out there right now. So it's just a matter of connecting with them.
Just so we're on the same page. So what you're saying is, with all these factors going on, it's a great time to leave your steady career to go solo and launch a podcast.
Absolutely.
Great.
Just dive right on in. But
Sounds
I think if you have an audience, and you have, if you're like, you obviously, you've been making content on the internet for a long time. People know who you are. You're not starting from zero. You're starting with people who already follow you and people who want to hear the things that you have to say. So you've already got a leg up. I forget what the statistic is, but God, going up. I mean, I don't remember right now, like I said, but off the top of my head, it's like 99% of podcasts don't get over like 1,000 downloads per episode. So it's like the bar to reach like the top echelon of podcasts is really low.
Yeah. I think I saw that stat as well. It was kind of surprising to see. I think like the median podcast is downloaded 30 times or something like that. But yeah, it's cool. Hey, we're doing it, baby. We have look, there are 80 people consuming this. So we are over average.
Well, you're live right now. Most podcasts don't follow this this formula that you're doing. Now, this is something that we do with Rooster Teeth Podcast as well, where you film the taping and you show it live as you're doing it, and then you produce the content based on that. So it's almost like this is gravy on top. The live aspect that's in addition to everything else. Like people traditionally, when they count podcast consumption, they don't count your live viewers as well. And so I think that really helps separate and also creates a connection between you and your audience, because you can monitor chat, you can have an interaction. If someone in chat has a question about whatever you're talking about, you can look at it and address them directly, and it helps drive that engagement further, so that hopefully then they can tell their friends, oh yeah, you should listen to this podcast. They read a question of mine on the air and they answered it, and hopefully it feeds that cycle of promotion and getting more downloads.
The virality of it. See, I mean, straight off the bat, I see Brett is going to quit his job and start a podcast now, which is great. I see this in the chat, which is wonderful to hear. So go get it, Brett.
What are you going to start your podcast about, Brett? Let us know.
Just really curious. This is good. Well, so how has everything affected? I mean, obviously, you guys are probably doing everything through Zoom now, right?
It's like a mishmash. I feel like it's weird. I feel like every department and every project has a different platform that they prefer. That's kind of the reason for my rant earlier is like there's so many different ones. It's like, oh, if I'm working with this department, we're going to be in Discord. If I'm working with this department, we're going to be in Google Meet. If I'm working with these guys, we're doing it this way, we might use like a software like vMix or something. So it's all over the place. I did a collaboration with an outside group a couple of weeks ago, and they were using Skype, and I was like, oh shit, Skype's still around.
Well, it's a thing. That's right. Yeah.
But the annoying thing with me with Skype was that, so normally I'm not using a webcam. I have a camera on a tripod that's hooked up into an Elgato, and that's how I get the video signal here.
You look good.
Thanks. But Skype does not recognize that as being a webcam. Skype wants an actual webcam hooked into your computer in order to function. I was like, how dumb is this software? So I had to switch. I had to use my stupid laptop with its built-in webcam for that project, and it didn't look nearly as good.
Yeah. So I have a camera hooked into an Elgato, the Elgato into the computer, and that's what recognized. It's a mess. It's crazy. It's wonderful, but it's just a mess. It's amazing how it happens. So
yeah, I mean, I think you're fortunate enough. You've been, like I said earlier, you've been doing this a long time as well, so you understand how to hook it all up, how to get everything going. And I feel like when things enter lockdown, when COVID took off, a lot of people were scrambling to learn, like, oh, how do I hook up a camera to my computer? How do I set up a microphone? But people who were already in online content creation or who were already streaming, it's like, oh, well, I've got all that stuff already at home set up. This is easy. Like, I'm just going to tweak it a little bit to make it look, a little different for work. But bam, you're set. I think there were early jokes, right? Like, people would always, when working from home started, people would always joke that like the part-time at-home Twitch streamer was always like the best looking person on office video calls, because they already had everything set up, and they were already set. They were already ready to go. Like, you had a leg up. And I think that, post pandemic, we're not going to go back to the way things were before. Things will be forever changed moving forward. But I think that this will help legitimize the kind of work that streamers and people who are used to broadcasting from home do, because now companies see the value in it. It's like, oh, we can have people work from home, continue to do their work, and we can interact with them. They still look really sharp. They're really there. They're on top of everything. And from a business perspective, the business doesn't have to pay as much rent for a big building. You're subsidizing their rent and their utility costs when you work at home, or you're using your own water, you're using your own toilet paper.
Sure.
They don't have to do that stuff. And I think that we'll see a lot more widespread adoption of people working like that.
It's really fascinating to think about the process of after all this is done, right? The idea of not going into an office, right? And you guys have so many employees that I'm sure there will be a lot of working from home after all this is done. But I personally feel, and I know a lot of people do, that just human interaction. There's people they're missing that right now. The idea of physical interaction with people, going out getting a beer, or going out and get a cup of coffee with somebody, just saying hi, meeting at the snack room, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And I that's the one thing I fear post this is a lot of people be working from home, like myself included, but. I was just talking to my wife yesterday. She goes, "We need to get you a social circle. We need to get you like friends to hang out with outside of work.
Yeah.
And like there's truth to that, because people long for human interactivity that is not in this digital space. I mean, I love talking to you, Gus, but I would love to give you a big old hug.
Right.
Yeah,
and I miss that. About just being able to walk around the studio. Sometimes like I'd be working on something, be like, I'm going to stretch my legs, walk around, and be like, just surrounding people, be like, what are you working on? What's the status of this? Do you have a rough cut of that video? Like, let's watch it, and just like sharing ideas, like things that we're working about, and keep in touch with everyone. Now it's like, I'm going to message them, or it's like, I don't want to bother them. It's not the same. There is value to, physically being with people and, and spending time together. But the introvert antisocial part of me is like, but this is nice too. Yeah. I think, obviously we've swung to an extreme here where we're at right now. I think, the balance and the happy medium's more in the middle, obviously, actually spending some time in the office. But I'm glad that my commute's way better now. It's
right,
just like
right.
From right over there to right over here.
I was watching a video about it was describing the work process today. I was like, well, before you get up, you go, you brush your teeth, you get your you shower, and then you get all your clothes on, you iron them, you get ready to go, you get in your car, you drive 30 minutes, you go into work, you say hi, Bob. Now you get up and you're at work, and it's like there you go, you're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's good and bad, right? Like, how do you decompress? Like, when are you done working? I actually moved my setup when we first started working from home. I was working out of my living room, and I felt like that was actually super unhealthy. Like at the time when we started, I was like, oh, this would be really convenient. Like my gaming computer's already over there in the corner. I just have to kind of, set up a few things and I'll be set. But as time went on, it's like, then there's no separation between when you're working and when you're relaxing. Like when I was done with work, I'd walk over to my couch and like put Netflix on or something, but it's like I can still see my desk, and the temptation is like, oh well, let me just go hop over there and work for a bit, and the next thing you know, it's like you end up working way more, like more hours than you work when you were at the office, because it's like, oh, it's just right there, let me just hop on and do stuff. So that's why that's like I'm in a spare bedroom now.
I'm the same way. We actually moved my office from one side of the house to the other side of the house, away from everything, to where I would be forced to walk down a hall, and is just to where it's like, okay, I'm now going to work, right? But when I go to work, it's like going into a cave and then coming out, and it's like, oh, I see the light again. It's you're right. You definitely need that separation for sure. It's crazy.
Yeah. But it's good, and I like this space a lot more because I can be a lot louder. Like there's no, I'm separated. I can, if I want to yell, I can yell. If I want to do whatever, it's fine. I'm separated. I mean, I can look at my pickles.
I was gonna say you have pickles to put back there. You have movie posters. You got all sorts of nice, and look at that. You have awesome backlight. Look at that, man.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I got a light strip on the ground down there for some backlight.
Looks good, man. That's some You truly are the master of podcasting. Look at you.
I've got my favorite thing that I like to gloat about over Bernie behind me. I haven't pointed this out to anybody yet, so you'll be the first person.
Special.
I got my autographed Bill Nye, the science guy, card here. I was on his Netflix show, and he wrote me a thank you note.
Really?
Yeah. So I put it up there because
what was that like? How is Bill Nye as a person? Is he as good as everyone thinks he is, or is
Well,
he just a total jerk?
it's super intimidating to meet someone like that, you know. Like I watched his show when I was a teen, like I was an older kid at the time. I was a teenager when his show was on, but still,
Sure.
like I watched it, you know, all the time. And to meet someone that you've looked up to and seen for so long, like it's intimidating. Like I'm when I first met him, we were on set, like I was getting my hair done, like my hair and makeup done to get ready to go on camera, and he came in and like sat down at the chair next to me, and he just started talking like, oh, you know, what's going on? He's like, are you the person that's on the show with me today? It's like, yeah, we're going to film the thing. He's like, yeah, cool. I mean, it was super nice, super cool to meet him. But it's like all the anxiety was on my end. I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to do anything to mess this up. Like I've been idolizing this guy for so many years. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely really a highlight to get to meet him.
Didn't want to look like one of those gifts from Team America where he's just vomiting up. Oh yes, Bill Nye. Whoa.
Yeah.
So how'd that come about? How did you end up on the Bill Nye Netflix show?
Okay, so the reason I put it up is I kind of use that to gloat over Bernie. How did it happen exactly? So they had reached out to Bernie asking if some of us could go out there and be on the show with Bill Nye. And I think the way that happened was that Mike Drucker is a writer on that show. And you know, we've known Mike Drucker. You can follow him on Twitter at Mike Drucker. And I met him at the kind of funny had a live event, and Mike Drucker was there watching it, and I met him there, and we kind of hung out. And then a few months later, I guess he was working on the Bill Nye show, and they reached out to Bernie to see if some of us could go out there. And there was like a scheduling conflict, so you know, we had to go back and forth to figure out the schedule. And initially it was going to be Bernie, Jeff, and myself. But when they were going to film, I couldn't make it. I forget. I think I was out of town or something. So I said, "Don't worry about it, guys. You all go ahead and you film it without me." And then Bernie was being super accommodating. He's like, "No, let's reschedule a different time." So we ended up rescheduling at a different time. But at that time, then Bernie couldn't make it. So then it ended up just being Jeff and myself on the show. And I felt really bad about it, but not so bad that I don't gloat by putting the autograph up there.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. So you mentioned obviously Bernie. How has that been since he moved on? How has that changed things? It's obviously
It hasn't changed much, especially since we're not, you know, going into the office every day. We still text each other all the time. I texted him yesterday. I had a question for him. I was trying to remember someone we knew that we used to work with. I couldn't remember his name, so I was texting him about that. And yeah, we still send each other like articles and stuff. You know, he's out of town currently, but I mean, yeah, I'm still just. I couldn't see him now anyway because of lockdown and the pandemic and everything. So it's like it really hasn't changed anything day to day.
Cool. Well, can we take a few steps back, like 20 years? Because
Sure.
I've always been like, as early internet video guys, right? I always love to talk to people about like how they got started and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Rooster Teeth predated Screwtap by a year or two, couple years, whatever it may be. And I remember seeing. Let's talk about the origins of RT first, because this is something that I'm not super familiar with. Like I'm going to be fully transparent with you. I didn't know a whole lot about Rooster Teeth prior to Fullscreen acquiring you guys, right?
Sure.
I knew the name, and we had reached out to I think we had reached out to you guys before. People like, you should work with Rooster Teeth. And I think we tried to reach out to you guys once or twice and never heard back, and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, talk to me about the origins of how you guys got started and how y'all met, and then we'll start there and we'll kind of work our way through.
Sure. So obviously I'm going to tell it from my perspective.
Please do.
This is like the way I experienced it. But I moved to Austin in January of '98, and at the time when I moved here, like had no money, no job, nothing, and I got a job at a call center down in South Austin, and we were doing tech support, like phone-in tech support. So it was all outsourced. So, back then it was all dial-up internet. If you couldn't connect to the internet and you called tech support, your ISP probably outsourced it to a company like ours. And we would pick up the phone and we pretend to be your ISP and we'd help you, fix your computer trouble and get connected to the internet. And when I started there in February of '98, Bernie was already working there. He'd been working there for several years, and he gave me my new employee orientation. And so we met at that time, but I was a new guy and he was already he'd been there for several years. So I didn't see him really much day to day. But in January of '99, Jeff started at that tech support company as well. And Jeff and I got along like instantly. We were both, on the floor. So we'd sit next to each other all the time taking calls. And so we started, just to kill time. We decided, like, let's just start making websites for fun, just to make each other laugh and make our friends laugh. So back then, it was like I said, it was 99. Registering a domain for a website used to cost $70. So it's like, we would be like, man, let's come up with a really funny idea. Let's register a website and let's make it. So we'd have to, that's what we did for free time, in our free time, for fun. And like Bernie noticed, and I think he was looking for an outlet for writing at the time. So he started writing with us and making websites with us, and we went through several that never really took off. And finally, when one of them died, like, we decided we weren't going to do that project anymore. Bernie had been filming like gameplay videos in Halo, just like trick shots and stuff like that. And Halo Combat Evolved on the Xbox.
This is 99, you said?
This is fast forward a little bit. Okay. So this is now like summer of 2002.
Okay.
And we were wrapping up that one website, and Bernie was like, well, why don't he's like, for the next website, let's make a video series using Halo. He's like, we can already capture the footage. Like, let's he wanted to write a script. He's like, so he wrote a script, and it was like, let's just film this script, but instead of going out with a camera, let's film it in the video game. So we started doing that in late 2002, early 2003, and then that's when we launched Red versus Blue in April of 2003. And the reason we were able to do this was because, like, flashback, when he was in college, Bernie had made a film with Matt, who's one of the other guys who helped start Rooster Teeth. And because they had made this film in college together, he had a digitizer in his computer, like a capture card. So we could hook up the Xbox to his computer and we could capture footage, which, now you can buy an Elgato. There's tons of options to do that. Back then, it was like, this was a piece of hardware that cost like several $100s. Like, we never would have been able to afford it if he didn't already have this piece of equipment from filming his movie. So, we just started doing that, and that took off pretty quickly. People were really into it and really liked it. And
what is taking off? Is that
so
1,000 views, 500 hits, I guess, at the time?
Yeah. So we launched, like I said, April of 2003, and like, it just spread. It seemed like an order of magnitude. Like, I don't remember the exact numbers and the exact time frame. It was, but we hit 1 million, downloads very quickly. It had to be downloads back then. There was no way to embed video. And I remember on May 5th, which is like a month after we launched, May 5th of 2003, on the same day, we were on the front page of Slashdot, Fark, and Penny Arcade, which were, obviously they're all still around, but, at the time, Slashdot and Fark were massive websites. And like, that just cratered all of our servers. We couldn't keep up with the demand. And so that's really what kicked things off, like even more so, like into super hyperdrive. And I mean, that's really how it started. Like, and then at that point, it was like, oh, well, the people seem to really like it. Maybe we can try to do this, instead of just as a hobby, maybe we can be able to do this as a full-time job instead. So then we started working on trying to figure all of that stuff out. And I mean, we never went in with the intention. It was like all of our other websites. We never went in with the intention of like, oh, this is going to succeed beyond anything we can imagine. We're all going to quit our jobs and do this full time. It was just like, yeah, let's just do this for fun. We got nothing else to do. Let's just try to make our friends laugh. And it really took off from there.
Well, how long before, there was obviously a different time, but licensing has always been a thing. Mm-hmm. When did Microsoft ever come to you guys with Halo and be like, hey, you can't do this?
Yeah, they contacted us really early. God, my memory's kind of bad now. It's been so long. I want to say it was probably by episode 2 or 3. It was like early to mid-April of 2003. We had one of those website counters where you could log into a dashboard and you could see like the IP address and domains of websites that were visiting your website. So we would keep it up on one of the monitors while we were working. And I remember we were working, I was like, oh, look, there's a hit from Microsoft.com there. That's weird. And then like a couple minutes later, it was like, oh, look, there's 3 hits in a row there from Microsoft.com. Then a couple minutes later, it's like, oh, look, there's 10 in a row. And it's like, oh shit. Like, it's internal there. They found it. They're watching it.
Well, how was the response from them? Were they pleased or not so pleased?
They were super cool, super great about it. We got an email from them that was like, hey, we saw what you guys are doing. We really like what you're doing. We want to help you make sure that you continue to do it the right way. So they contacted us and they helped guide us through that process to make sure that everything was on the up and up and everything was totally legit. And it's really at the time, it was really forward thinking of them. I think they were between Halo games, so I think they viewed this as like a weird, in a way, like a viral marketing for their game. That keeping people exposed to it and keeping it in front of people's minds. I think about how easy it would have been for their legal department or anybody to say, no, fuck those guys, they can't do that, and just kill it instantly. But they really embraced it, and they really helped us to make sure that we navigated that process correctly. And for years, we filmed all of the stuff with we didn't really have any extra help from them beyond that. We filmed all those early seasons with retail Xboxes and retail copies of the game Halo. We were lucky enough that Bungie did invite us up to like play Halo 2 before it was released, and stuff like that. Like small things. We didn't get to take the game home early ahead of time or anything, but we at least got to go up and play some multiplayer with them, and know what was coming. That way we could adapt what we were filming at the time. But yeah, it's always been a super great relationship between Microsoft and previously Bungie and now 343. And I mean, we couldn't have done it without their blessing, for sure.
It's crazy to think about. And you're right. Like you look at Nintendo today and how quickly they want to shut down YouTube channels for playing their game. That's a few years ago, but still, just the thought, it is pretty forward thinking to think that this, especially at the time, 2003, this internet and video was not what it is today. YouTube wasn't even a thing at the time.
Yeah, this predated YouTube. I remember years later, God, I can't remember when it was. It must have been like 08 or 09. I was up at Microsoft for some reason, and I met the lawyer. I met the guy. He says he was the lawyer who gave us the go ahead. He was like, oh yeah, you're Rooster Teeth. He's like, yeah, I remember I saw your stuff back in 03, and we had a meeting about what we were going to do. He said I'm the one who said that we should let you guys continue doing what you're doing. I was like, I have no way to verify that. I said, but thank you if that was you. We really owe you a lot. That's super cool of you.
That's great. So you guys grew. You saw a lot of success. At what point did Rooster Teeth become like a profitable company to where you're like, oh, okay, we can actually make money doing this?
So it's tough, man. Right? Like we said, YouTube didn't exist at the time. There was no way to embed videos. So what we were having to do was, at the time, we had our website hosted. We were having to host all the downloads. Mm-hmm. So anytime someone downloaded a video, we were paying for that bandwidth. It
cost you money, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like our first month bandwidth bill was like $15,000. And we were like, oh shit, like this is gonna kill us. There's no way we're gonna be able to do this. So we ended up having to use BitTorrent. And we taught everyone how to torrent our videos, and we would seat them when the video was done. We'd each take a copy to our homes, and we would seat the torrent from our houses to try to get things going. But there was a lot of cost with bandwidth bills early on, but people were very anxious to support us from the beginning. And I don't know, man, it's been so long. I don't remember like an exact moment where we were like, what, this is profitable. But early on we were like, we can make this work. Like we can make ends meet. And it was never, it was never, as I said, but it's also hard because it was never our goal to make it a business initially. It was never my goal, I should say. We thought we were just going to be doing this for fun. So we were just trying to, pay the bills and make sure that those bandwidth costs weren't gonna overwhelm us right away.
For sure. Well, how were people supporting you? I mean, PayPal wasn't really a thing back then.
Actually, it was.
Was PayPal a thing? Okay.
Yeah. What we did was, we were getting these bills, and we could draw the line, and we knew it's like, well, we need to do something to offset this. So what we did was, it was like there was a brief window in time where people would do this, where it's like we put a PayPal button on our website. We're like, listen, all this stuff's free. You don't have to give us money. It's like, if you enjoy it and if you want to, you can donate to that PayPal link. Like no obligation. It was just off on the side. And we set up a program where people could pay, I think it was like $10 for a season of Red versus Blue, and you would get like premium access on our forums. Or you could pay $20 and you would get premium access on our forums. And when the season was over, we'd send you a DVD. So like we kind of used that. It was almost like a pre-order, or like almost like a weird Kickstarter or like,
Sure, sure.
crowdfunding kind of way. And so we did that to kind of try to offset the costs. And some people would do that, and some people would just send a random amount of money that was like, I don't want anything, just want to support you guys. I think it's really funny. And I mean, that's really what helped get us through in those early times.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, you essentially had this first before first. You had a premium product online, which once again at that time, like ordering things online was not what it was today. So asking people to partner, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it was a huge pain, dude. Like when we finished season 1 of Red versus Blue, we had to pack up. Well, then people had requested DVDs. If people had given us $20, then it's like we had their address and we knew it's like, okay, now we need to figure out how to make DVDs. We need to figure out how to print DVDs, and we need to figure out how to mail DVDs.
Right.
So it's like, we had to hire a company to print all these DVDs, and we got them delivered to Jeff's house. And then we're like, okay, now we need to go buy thousands of envelopes, and we need to like stuff DVDs in envelopes. Okay, we did that. Now we need to figure out how to take these thousands of addresses and print labels and put them on all the envelopes. And we need to go to the post office. We need to buy all this postage. It's like, the logistics of getting all those physical DVDs, stuffing them in envelopes and then taking them into the post office. It was, none of us had any experience in this. So it was just like, how do we do this? How are we going to figure this out? In 2003, and it was a lot of learning. I remember one time we were at a post office here in Austin. They closed it. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was a post office over at like 6th and Guadalupe. And it had one of those boxes, like you go to the post office and you drive outside and they got those blue boxes and you could like put your letters in there. We pulled up with a pickup filled with DVDs, and we just started stuffing DVDs into that thing. And what we realized was that it wasn't just that blue box. That blue box was the cover for a chute that went underground. And underground was a giant receptacle, like a giant bin that caught all the mail. So we just started shoving as many DVDs as we could in there. And after a couple minutes, like some postal workers came running out from around the corner screaming at us. So we took off because we were scared. We thought we were gonna... But what we found out later was they were screaming at us to go to the dock. Like you could drive around back at the post office and like just unload all your stuff there. But we didn't know anything. Like we were just using the postal service like a normal consumer would.
Right.
I see here, I'm going to answer something in chat. I see in chat, TK says, I hope they got that company postage deal. We didn't. Didn't
know it existed. Yeah.
We were going up to the counter. Like I'd go up to the counter and be like, I want to buy 1,000 first class stamps, and they'd be like, we can't sell you that many.
Right.
Like why not? Like because if you buy all of them, we're not going to have any other stamps to sell, and somebody else may want to buy them. Like, but yeah, I want to buy them. Like you can sell them.
What's it matter? I can buy them right now. It's like what's it matter? Yeah. It's so funny because I can absolutely relate to that entire process where we started selling DVDs early on, and it was like, okay, we're going to sell DVDs. And then we did the exact same thing. The idea of like, we didn't know about corporate postage rates or flat rates. And we were putting these DVDs in envelopes, and they weren't padded envelopes. So some would get there and they'd be broken. We'd have to send out another one. It's like you learn these things, and just the learning process. I think that's the thing that a lot of people, when they look at Rooster Teeth, when they look at successful online entities, the learning process of figuring things out as you go. I mean, there's so many stories in there that. You talk about, at the very beginning, you're talking about people learning how to use Zoom, video conferencing software, right? That's part of the fun of this whole thing is figuring this out. I could have saved money from getting flat rate postage. And I remember when Chad James, who now works for RT, Chad came in and he first handled our merchandise, and he came in and he was like, he came in and figured it all out, got all the shipping squared away, got it. And I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, and Chad got it all squared away. And it was like, wow, this is next level stuff. I wish I had known this, 6 months ago when we started,
Yeah. And I think that speaks to the kind of industry like that you and I, that we work in. It's like, you don't necessarily have to know everything jumping in, but you have to have a mental flexibility. And you have to be ready to like roll. Like problems are going to pop up. You can't let it crush you. You got to be like, okay, like this is a problem. How am I going to address it? How am I gonna fix it? And just trying to have that mental flexibility and the willingness to learn and adapt.
Bingo. You're 100% right. So you guys saw the success. Screwtap came around. We were 2006, and we're just out of my curiosity. I'm like, was Screwtap on Rooster Teeth's radar at all?
We were, I mean, we'd seen some of your videos and we were, like aware of you guys. We definitely kept up with, other people making content online. I know you said that at some point, you all reached out to us, and if we didn't reply, it's not because, it was like a snubbing thing. It's just because there was a several year period where we weren't sleeping. Like we were just
Sure.
overwhelmed with work, and it was like, there's no way we can do anything else. But yeah, I mean, I think anyone who was working at that time in the online video space uh, was aware of other people who were making consistent work and who were putting stuff out. Because I mean, you definitely saw, individuals or groups band together, do stuff. They'd rise, and some would maintain, some would fall, and it's been a long time. But yeah, I think even to this day, we're always keeping an eye on other people who are out there making content. But like we said earlier, there's a way more people making stuff now. The technology is a lot more accessible. Everyone can buying like an Elgato or a capture device is way more reasonable now. You can download free. Computers are way more powerful. You can download free utilities to help you do just about anything you want to do. Of course, there's professional versions you can pay for too, but there's a lot of free stuff as well that you can use to help you produce quality content.
Quality content. That's the key. I think about like, you called in, we were live within 2 minutes, and I think about like the first time that we live streamed, and there was like a setup of cables going through VCRs through the console device, and then the console to the whatever, and it was just like a total mess. And how streamlined it is now. It's fascinating and amazing how easy, truly easy it is. And there's the ease of making content, but then there's it's almost like I would rather struggle with getting the content out and figuring out how to make it work, because there was far less people doing it then, and it's easier to stick out for sure because there's less people.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point about like streamlined setups and things being a lot easier to get online, it's like when you're struggling less with the technical difficulties and the technical setup, then that frees up more time to hopefully work on the creative and work on the quality and the polish. You're not cursing at equipment that's not working. It's like you can trust that things are going to work, and instead you can spend the bulk of your time not frustrated, either writing or editing or putting the finishing touches on something, so that it has that extra level of polish and it looks better.
I think that's one of the things that people always, when they look at specifically like the RT podcast as a whole and just the podcast productions you guys do as live, there's always been an obscene amount of polish. And one of the things that when Screwtap came in, after we were acquired by Fullscreen acquired Rooster Teeth, and they're like, hey, you guys play together now. That's the one thing I really I thought your terminology was interesting, right? The idea of it being a broadcast as opposed to a live stream, like little things like that I thought were pretty interesting.
Well, we so way back in the day, that was one of the projects I started. I started our broadcast department back in whatever year it was. The thought was I wanted to call it broadcast because we were going live, like you said. People called it live streaming, but we were live streaming podcasts, and I thought like broadcast was a lot more appropriate at the time. Live streams, Twitch was around, and a lot of live streams were just video game content and like Twitch streamers, but we were doing something that was kind of different at the time, and I wanted it to click in people's minds that it was more analogous to like broadcast television,
sure,
as opposed to gameplay streaming. And like I think that terminology has definitely stuck, because that was always the long-term goal. Back then, we only had one broadcast show. It was only the RT podcast, but I wanted to create a department where it was going to be like linear program television, where it's like people would know, like, I'm going to tune in on this day at this time and I'm going to get this show, and I wanted to have shows that cycle through seasons and, ultimately get to a point where it was like a television station and, there were different shows and everything. That's got its pluses and its minuses. It's easy to say like, oh, like that was a good idea, it worked out, but there's also minuses to that, right? Like at the time I thought that YouTube channels would be more like television, where it's like you would think of a YouTube channel like a network television, like NBC or something. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to watch every show on there, but there's a couple of shows that I like. But in reality, YouTube channels have become more like shows, where it's like this channel is this show, and every show has a different channel. So I think like even the term YouTube channel is probably outdated. Like that should be a different term there. So I think like that was a miss, right? Like people don't view channels as channels; they view channels as shows. So it's just, I mean, it's just like a semantic thing. I wish that we had maybe diversified it a little more to make it more accessible for people.
Well, it seems like, I mean, your podcasts are some of the most listened to podcasts. I mean, you have the podcast, you have the Roost now, which is a pretty big thing. I was actually talking to Fareed about that not so long ago. Fareed's a good guy for those who have followed Game Attack for a while. Man, so okay, so you guys saw success. You obviously, we were acquired by Fullscreen. How? Because I remember I was in a meeting with George and Ezra before we were acquired, and he goes, "What do you think about Rooster?" Ezra goes, "What do you think about Rooster Teeth?" Right? And in my mind, I said, "Well, we never really worked with them before. They seem like great people. I don't know." But in my mind, that said, "Okay, he's been snooping around RT as well." How long? When were you guys first talking to Fullscreen?
Man, I don't remember. It's been several years now. So we were acquired in, I want to say it was November of 2014. I mean, we'd always,
right,
we'd always had, I mean, for years, we'd always had people coming around asking about, acquisitions and stuff like that. And, lots of, almost none of them were the right fit. And so I can't tell you exactly when the first time that I saw George and Ezra. I know that it was down at our South studio. I'm pretty sure it was at our South studio, which, God, we were in that building from 2010 to 2014, I think. So somewhere in that range, I remember them coming by, and I remember Ezra specifically, and like showing them around and showing some of the stuff we were working on. But man, nothing makes me feel more like an old man than trying to remember a date or a year in relation to Rooster Teeth now, just because it's been so long.
Sure.
But we'd been talking to them for some time before all of that stuff got finalized.
Yeah, I would imagine, because I remember him saying that, and in my mind I was like, oh, okay, cool, So we'll see how this goes. And that was one of the things where after we were acquired, I think it was 8 months, because in between there, that's when the AT&T investment came in, and hey, great, awesome, love it. So you guys are acquired by Fullscreen, and it's been six years now, right?
Almost 6 years, yeah.
Yeah. So now you have not just Fullscreen, but there's AT&T and like 17 layers to this company. It's like how is that? Because I remember I personally struggled tremendously. I guess professionally struggled tremendously, because I went from having no bosses to having like 7 bosses, and I had such a hard time with that, because for me it was like, our philosophy was always, have an idea, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And it was a little bit of that way with Fullscreen. But when we came under RT, I personally like really struggled with the process of getting sign-offs and things like that. And I've talked about that in the past. What was it like for you guys?
Well, I mean, for the most part, like I sit in a weird position, so it's hard for me to say, right? Like I'm not in any managerial position at Rooster Teeth, despite the fact like I'm a co-founder. Like I would rather focus. It's always been my desire to focus on creating content. So like as far as managerial, I just want to add that disclaimer right now. As far as like managerial perspective, that's not me. Like I'm always trying to make stuff, and I'm always trying to work on the creative end. Even before, I mean, I feel like I've always struggled with like trying to bring an idea to fruition. And I don't know, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's external forces. We launched this podcast back in April called Black Box Down, which is a podcast that I host about air disasters. And that is a podcast I'd been trying to make for, I think, about a year. And that's not necessarily, it got bogged down in approvals, but not, because of, any corporate structure. It got bogged down in approvals, like at a Rooster Teeth level, like with people that I know and that I work with, like getting sign-offs even, here internally, like that can be a struggle. But it's something you just got to work through. Like I just try to not let it frustrate me. It's like it's just like I know that ultimately I know that the people I'm working with, the people who are going to sign off on this, they're just looking to make sure that we're putting out the best product that we can, right? And it's like they're going to make sure that they want to make sure that I've thought it through and that we have a plan and that we're going to execute on it. And I wish that it had been easier. I wish I hadn't taken so long for it to get pushed through. But in the end, I think that it's probably stronger for having spent more time in development and for having forced me to think more about it. It just can be frustrating when you think you have an idea, or when you have an idea and it's like, I just want to make this right now.
Sure.
Like, well, we got to get some other people's input, and I'm not necessarily the best collaborator, so that can be difficult for me to have to sit and listen to. But sometimes I know that I've got to do it.
What made you want to focus on airplane disasters?
I've always been fascinated by them. So, like ever since I was a little kid, I would watch, the news, and you'd see like a plane crash, and you would hear like people survived, and to me, like that was crazy. And I would start to think about how safe traveling by air is, right, and how much more dangerous it is to be in a car. And I would think about, I'm all about processes, and I would think about all of the safety regulations and all the safety measures that go into flying, and how when something does go wrong, it's unusual. So why did something go wrong? And I was always fascinated in the analysis and uncovering that. And it's something I've been interested in, like I said, ever since I was a little boy. And
how many episodes have you done?
I think we have 13 episodes out now. So we've been releasing them weekly.
Do you have
I just taped one this morning, actually.
It's that's awesome. It's really, I mean, it's awesome and kind of morbid at the same time. Do you have I guess it's kind of odd to say, do you have a favorite plane crash?
I do. It's the episode that came out last Thursday. It's United 232. It's a plane that if you saw the footage, you'd probably recognize it. It was a plane that crashed in 1989, where the plane lost all hydraulic control. So they basically, the control sticks in the cockpit did not move the plane. So they had to pilot the plane by alternating the power to the left and the right engines to get the plane to turn left and right.
Wow.
And the plane ended up crashing when it came into land, and it's a horrible looking crash, but a lot of people survived. Like this was basically an unflyable plane. The controls did nothing. All they could do was adjust their engine power to try to get the plane on the ground, and they managed to do it. Yeah. It looks horrible. Like the plane looks like it does a cartwheel. The whole thing's on fire. But I think that's what started. I was 11 when this happened. I remember watching this on the news, and this was the incident that really made me interested in aircraft disasters and incidents. And it's kind of gone from there. So I'm glad we finally covered that last week.
Right. That's insane. So how many people survived that?
Off the top of my head, I want to say like 112.
Holy crap!
Survived, yeah, and including all four people in the cockpits. All four people in the cockpit. The crash was so bad that the plane broke up into several pieces, and it took the rescuers 35 minutes to find the cockpit because it was just like scattered across so many different pieces. And I think the cockpit ended up in a cornfield, if I remember right. Jeez, but a listener actually just sent me this little keychain. I don't know how well you can see it. This is it's a keychain that's made from the skin of a Boeing 767, and the plane that it's made out of was the subject of episode 1 of Black Box Down. It's a plane that was flying over Canada at 41,000 feet, and it ran out of fuel. And the pilots had to figure out how to try to land a plane with hundreds of people on it with no fuel at 41,000 feet, and they managed to land the plane, and everyone survives. But yeah, so this keychain that they sent me is made out of the skin of that plane.
Wow, of that exact plane.
That exact plane. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is insane to think about. Like I can see why you're fascinated by that stuff, and and I think that's also the fascinating thing about podcasts is that they can be about such niche things like, hey, I want to do a podcast about planes that have crashed.
Right. And that's a big reason why I mentioned earlier when we were talking, when we started this episode, like if you are passionate about something and you have an interest in something, I guarantee you there's more people who share that interest as well. Like here in chat, who is this? I see Evil Little Jawa says, this is the reason I took an interest in air disasters.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, there are more people who have that kind of interest. Yeah. It's super fascinating. Like I said, there's so much safety. There's so many checks and double checks that go into flying to make sure that everything's safe. And when something goes wrong, I'm curious, what went wrong? It's just like,
apparently not. They didn't check the gas that day.
well, what happened in that instance, I'll give a little spoiler for you, was
Please.
they had converted from imperial to metric. So they had put pounds of fuel in instead of and thought they had put kilograms of fuel. So they ended up with way less fuel than they needed. And they ran out of fuel as a result of that.
Wow. Is there any other like that's a very interesting thing to be into. What like if I was to ask you 6 months ago, what's the niche thing that you're really interested in, you like to make a podcast about, you would have answered planes going down. Mm-hmm. What's the next thing on the list?
That's interesting.
Pickling?
I haven't thought about that. Pickling. We'll see how this pickling goes, but maybe. So it's funny you say that. So the reason, I mean, you got me on another tangent here. The reason I decided to make these pickles was over the weekend that Seth Rogen movie came out, An American Pickle. Yeah. I don't know if you watched it.
I haven't watched it.
Okay, well,
is it good?
It's fine. It's not like an Oscar caliber movie, but if you want to watch a 90-minute movie and laugh, sure, right? It's funny. It gets the job done.
Sure.
But in that movie, Seth Rogen plays a guy from 1919 who works at a pickle factory, and he gets trapped in a pickle vat and then is released in modern times. So, and then as part of the movie, like at one point he decides to start making pickles, and in the movie he makes pickles with just cucumbers, salt, and water. And I thought, as I was watching, I was like, don't you need vinegar to make pickles? I thought, all pickles had vinegar in them. So when the movie was done, I decided to look it up. And that's the way they used to make pickles 100 years ago, was no vinegar. It was just salt and water. And I was like, well, if dumbass people from 100 years ago could make pickles with salt and water, surely I should be able to make pickles with salt and water. So I looked up a recipe to make pickles like that. And that's why I've got a jar of pickles over here now.
Is it just an overgross statement that everybody from 100 years ago was just a dumb, stupid person?
Well, it's like, the world's changed so much, right? It's like there were super smart people, but you think about like the access to information and the overall level of intelligence. I think people know more. Well, it's a lot more difficult to be ignorant today. Like if you want to know something, if you're like, why is that? Or what's going on?
I don't know, man. I think it's pretty easy to be ignorant today. Absolutely.
But you almost have to actively be ignorant, right? You have to actively avoid information, because like I was curious, like, did people used to make pickles like that? I can go to Google and type, how do you make pickles? How did people make pickles 100 years ago? And you can find out that information. I guess it's like, if you want to know something, you can find it.
This is true, but you can also find all sorts of information that doesn't have anything to do with what you want to talk about, and it ends up weighing you down to where you're even more ignorant than you were when you started.
It's a matter of like parsing through that information,
Yeah.
Like old man talk here. Like when I was a kid, if you wanted to know something, you have to go to the library, and it's like, oh, is the library open today? Can I check this book out? Is it a reference book? Like, there's a lot more. What's Audacity?
As I said, I think you brought down your mic again.
It's not me. There must be a setting on Audacity that's doing that.
It's okay.
Does it sound better? So like there's just a lot more. It's a lot easier to get that information. To go out, if you want to find it, you can find it.
This is true.
But like you said, there is a lot of misinformation and stuff that is irrelevant out there as well. So you have to. That's another skill, is like looking at something and knowing, is this reliable information? Is this actually true? Can I trust this? Like going through and citing sources and figuring it all out.
I think that's the one thing that I always go back to is, be your own reporter. Don't let anybody tell you, especially just with how much information is out there. Be your own reporter. Draw your own conclusions. Don't let somebody tell you how to think. So that's just a personal thing with me. Well, man, this has been. I mean, how long do I have you?
However long you want. I think let me look. I think I probably got to get out of here by about 2:30.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Then we'll go for another couple minutes or so and see.
Sure.
And I'll tell you this: anybody in the chat, since this is live, if you have any questions for Gus, feel free to throw them out there, which is great.
Real fast, speaking of chat, I see here in chat right now that God, stupid Audacity, it's fighting me. I see that Mushi Fluff 84 says that now they want to make kimchi. The pickling process where you use salt water like this is very similar to the pickling process for kimchi. It's like a lactic acid or lactic acid bacteria fermentation process. It's very similar to the kimchi pickling process as well.
Okay. Hey, look at that. Look at that. That's outstanding. It's good. This is really great. So RT, I'm going to go back to RT here real quick because I could talk to you about everything because you're a great conversationalist.
Thanks,
if that's
man.
a word.
Thank you.
I really enjoy talking to you. But I feel like a lot of there's been a lot of change over the last year or so. Like before we get to like the questions from the audience, if you were to talk to if you were to have the forum, which you do, of course, to talk, and you do on all your podcasts, but what would you say to any RT fan who's been like, there's a lot of change, I'm scared, what do I need to do? Like, are you guys going to be okay? What would you say to them?
I mean, things always change. That's inevitable in the world. Like not only in the industry that we work in, but in the world at large. I think that don't be afraid. There's still very passionate people who work here and are continuing to try to make media, make content that people enjoy, and hopefully you find something you like. Going back to the earlier analogy I made, like with talking about NBC and broadcast television, it's like you don't have to like every single thing we put out. Just find the things that you do like. I don't expect every single Rooster Teeth fan to want to hear me talk about plane crashes, but there are some who will like that. We don't necessarily make every piece of content for every fan, but we do hope that there are enough people who do enjoy the content. And I think that should ring true for everything that we do make. And don't worry about us. We're still hard at work making content for you guys.
I see, and that's really great. And your analogy of I don't think a lot of people really grasp the idea of we don't make everything for everybody in the audience at all times. A lot of times people will, there's different cross sections, especially with an audience the size of RTs. There's different cross sections in there, different, that like to hear different things. And as Evil Little Java pointed out in the chat, it's like there are times where you didn't even know you had interest in something, and someone's passion about it. In this case, plane crashes has sparked interest for Evil Little Java, and that's pretty fascinating. So. It's good stuff. All right, Curtis wants to know what the future of RTX is. Do you have any idea what's going on with that? And possibly, he says, God forbid SGC. SGC, SGC is gone now, right? That's no longer a part of RTX, is it? I don't think it is.
I don't think so. I'm not the best person to answer that.
Yeah.
Especially this year because things are so chaotic with the pandemic. So we actually just announced that we're doing a virtual event this year, RTX at Home. If you go to the RTX event Twitter handle, you can see that we're going to spread it out over the course of, looks like 10 days, September 15th to 25th. And we'll have different live streamed events and different levels of interaction for people. And some events that are open to everyone, to the whole public, some events that are, exclusive to first members at Rooster Teeth. And, the world kind of dealt us a shit hand this year. So with the pandemic going on, so we're going to do the best. We're going to put things together, and we're going to try to do our best to help people have fun and forget about everything that's going on out there for a little while with us.
Well, if you need any content for RTX, I would love to contribute. If you need anything for that.
Absolutely. So I used to organize RTX for a few years. I was our event director. I don't do that anymore. I haven't done that in several years, but that was always it was always a lot of work. Like that's one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life is the event planning. I'm glad that we have a team that handles it now, but man, that is a lot of work, but it's super, super rewarding.
People, the most rewarding time, I remember being done with SGC and literally crying. Like you get done and you're just so exhausted and happy that that you were able to pull this thing off. And SGC never made any money, but it was one of those things where it was like, you know, and I think that's the thing people don't realize either is that like live events make no money. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing people would always say, like, oh, look, they're charging X number of dollars for a badge, and there's Y number of people here. They must be rich. They're raking in money. It's like,
right.
stuff is expensive, man.
Yeah, that internet you like costs $15,000 a day. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. Like everything's like, how much? What?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Putting on live events is so expensive. It's crazy.
Yes, you're right, but I have zero interest in going back and doing any sort of like big convention like that again. I'd rather just appear at them and just say hi to people that way and produce crazy programming at the events as opposed to running an entire event. And I was telling everybody like the last year we produced SGC cost like $250,000, and I think we made back like $245,000. So we ended up losing money on like the last year. Like Screwtap did its own SGC. It was insane.
Yeah, you ended up like $5,000.
Yeah, in the hole, right? Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, all that work for you know,
Yeah.
and people are like, it was so much fun. But okay, Georgie wants to know.
You think about it like a marketing expense, right?
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's
absolutely.
like yeah, it's going to cost you money, but it's like you're building community and you're building fandom. So I mean, you have to pay for that.
Yes, for sure. Georgie wants to know. He says you look like a guy who'd have a garden. Do you have any tips?
I've done some gardening in the past. I don't have one right now. The problem, like we talked about earlier, is it's so hot here. It's really difficult. My tip would be live somewhere where it's easier to grow stuff. It's so unbelievably hot and unbearable right now.
This is actually a really great question. DH Canada says, I miss a part about, but personal thoughts on removing old content because it could be found offensive by today's standards. That's actually a really interesting question, DH Canada.
Yeah, I think, we went through and removed some items from our back catalog for that reason here pretty recently. And, again, I'm not in a management position, and I'll give my personal perspective on it. It's like, I'm glad we did it. And I wish we had gone, I look at it, right? And I look at, from my perspective, I look at some content that I'm in. It's like, I'm that's not me anymore. If like, I was presented that today, I would not do that. And I'm embarrassed to see myself in that light. And, but at the same time, it's like, I never approached anybody. And then it's like a shortcoming of mine, right? It's like, I should have been proactive about asking, can we get rid of this stuff? So I'm glad that from the message comes from the top down. Like, some of this stuff doesn't align with our values anymore. Maybe we should, put a disclaimer or, do something about it. And a lot of people ask, like, why don't you just put a disclaimer or like a pre-roll on these videos? And I mean, the answer, again, I don't work on that. I don't know. But my thought is like, this stuff's been made over the course of 17 years. We may not have those project files anymore. Like those videos, who knows where they are? They're on a hard drive in like Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark somewhere in some warehouse. It's it's easy to say like, oh, just put a disclaimer pre-roll on it. It's like, yeah, but where is that project? I don't know. Right. So I'm sure that they're working on that for some videos. I don't know. I don't work on that, but it's not like you snap your finger and it's done.
Sure.
It takes work.
I feel like, especially in today's culture of like instant reaction and this person did this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, right? Like, you're right. Like, people do change. And there are things that I've looked at that I said I did, 10, 15 years ago. And I'm like, well, that's certainly not who I am now, but people will find those things. And, I think the idea of pulling them is probably in the best interest of everybody. There's really no negative from it.
I wouldn't want somebody's first experience with us to be watching a piece of like offensive content like that. I would hope that we're making a community that can be as welcoming to all kinds of people as possible. And I think that I would be discouraged if someone came and then saw a video that they personally found offensive and then thought that was reflective of the way that we believe or the way we are today. So let's try to make the world a better place for everyone. Let's try to make everyone laugh and be as inclusive about it as possible.
Agreed. Do you have a there's a question about what happened to Tuesday night game fights a while back. But I have a broad. Well, first you can answer that. I guess but I'll answer it for you. It didn't perform like it needed to. I would
Right.
imagine
Yeah.
that's why shows don't stick around. Do you have a show that you worked on or you thought was going to be like a surefire hit that just landed right on its face or didn't have the legs that you thought it would?
I think I mean that happens a lot of times, right? A lot of projects that we start, like we wouldn't start a project if we didn't think that it was going to go well, or if we didn't think that it was going to take off. And
Sure.
it's all about your how can I put it? It's all about your appetite for how long it'll take to build that audience, right? Like some stuff you release it like Red versus Blue and it's instantly a hit. People are sharing it and they're downloading it like crazy and it's going everywhere. Some stuff you put out and it doesn't hit right away and you keep working on it and it just never finds the audience and you have to know when to pull the cord on it. Some stuff you put out doesn't hit, but you keep working on it and then eventually it finds the audience. So you can't be discouraged if you put something out and then right away it falls flat on its face. You got to keep working on it, and it may pick up steam and it may find an audience, or it might not. So it's about trying to figure out when to make that call. Stuff that we've done, I thought. I mean, I've always thought everything we put out, I thought would be off to the races, instant hit, and that always doesn't happen. It's difficult to capture lightning in a bottle like that, and I think that early on that we wanted to make sure when we were making stuff that like we didn't let that get to us. Like we said, sometimes we make stuff and people don't like it. Okay, that's fine. We'll move on. Don't let that stumble trip you up and keep you from moving forward and making more content.
Do you have a personal favorite or a show that got axed and you're just like
personal favorite? I mean, I liked our one of our, I think it was our second podcast we did, we called The Patch. It was our video game podcast. And at the time, the RT podcast was like this behemoth. It would go on forever. It was like 2+ hours, 2.5 hours long. So when we were doing, when I was producing The Patch, I said, we're only going to do this. I set a timer. I was like, we're only going to go for so long. And as soon as the timer goes off, that's it. It's over. And I liked that approach of just like, this is it. But the audience didn't necessarily like the
sure.
How compressed, like, because then you have to have your conversations very quickly because you're watching the timer constantly. Because like as soon as the timer's done, we have to stop.
I like the idea. I love the idea of just not even have a timer go off and like at 45 minutes the show just ends in mid sentence. I just love that idea.
For a while, I had a big hourglass on the table that I would flip at the top of the show and be like, as soon as that's done, we're done.
Oh, that's so funny. That is so great. Was it a video podcast or audio?
Yeah.
Okay, it's video? Okay. Yeah. Just this constant timer just looming down the entire time. Oh, that's great. Great, man. This is a lot of people seem to, even Little John wants to say love The Patch. Let's see. John says, I really love the show Murder Room. Any chance it will be back?
I don't know what the status of Murder Room is. I don't know. I really liked Murder Room too. I like being on Murder Room. I think I was on that show twice, and I was correct both times. So I want to brag that I would be a good detective if crime investigation happened like it did on Murder Room. Nice. But yeah, I mean, especially right now, that would be impossible. Maybe it would be possible. I feel like that would be an impossible show to make from quarantine anyway. Right now, I think right now we're focusing on the things that we can produce from our homes and the things that we can collaborate on.
Talk about from a quarantine perspective, the difficulty of producing. I mean, there's this, you guys have the RT core group, which I know Chad is a part of, and that's like, you guys do your skits from that. Talk about the difficulty of creating sketch comedy virtually, essentially.
I mean, we've really kind of had to put that on the back burner just because it's super difficult to do remotely. We have done a couple of videos remotely, but when you're confined to like Zoom grids and things like that, there's only so much you can do, which I mean, I think we would like to do more. It's just very difficult to have to try to manage when you're not able to act with someone in the same room. So we've been trying to make other videos that we can make. We put out some a hide and seek video here recently. We're trying to do some more gameplay stuff, but we're trying to do what we can from a quarantine work environment. until we can be back together again.
When do you think that, as obviously we're still in the middle of this, but is this a decision that comes down from the up all the way to the top and
Well,
then trickles down to RT, or how's
I
that
mean,
work?
that's just like from a creative vision perspective. We can't.
Well, no, sorry, I mean from actually returning back to,
Oh.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we would have to hear that from definitely from like a management decision. But I mean, I can't even imagine when that'll be. I imagine that once it's safe to do so, probably once we have a vaccine or adequate testing, and there's a way to safely do it. I'm sure we will, but I have no insight. I know
Yeah.
every now and then we'll joke about it. We'll be like, when's it going to be? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? And honest answer is, I have no idea.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Like,
Yeah,
that's the reality.
it's impossible. When we did our last podcast in the studio on, I want to say it was March 23rd, and I remember walking out of the studio and looking at it and thinking, I'll be back by July. And no, here it is. It's August, and we're still like, who knows when we'll be back in there.
But at least we have baseball, basketball, and hockey, and that's the important thing.
It's coming back. We'll see how that goes, man. It makes me nervous.
What's that? All the sports?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know how effectively you can contain that. I think even like NBA working in a bubble, even baseball, we've seen some outbreaks flare up, and I think that it's ambitious for sure. Props to them for trying at least, but I think that it's a dangerous proposition.
Well, basketball's been really successful because unlike baseball, basketball's been in a true bubble, right?
Right.
It's funny. I mentioned that road trip. We actually went down to Disney, and it was Disney. There's nobody there right now, and you can ride all the rides you want, be done with all the parks in 3 hours, right?
Wow.
Like if that's all you want to do, it's insane. And like the idea of social distancing, it's insane. Like you don't come anywhere near with anybody within 6 feet. I mean, you might as well be walking in a desert. But when we went down there, you could see the bubble that they've created for the NBA players, because that's where they're doing it, down at Disney World. And I mean, I was talking to one of the doormen, and he said, I said, have you had any trouble with people getting into the bubble for the NBA players, whether it be groupies or whatever? And he goes, no, it's actually been the opposite. Like NBA players have been trying to get out of the bubble. And he said there have been several who have gotten out, but only one made the news. But they all want to go out and quote unquote live a quote normal life. Yeah. Whereas like baseball, they're just kind of, it's like, yeah, we're gonna play in front of no fans, but there's no bubble attached to it. I mean, there's a reason why, like, Miami is one of the biggest, South Florida has one of the biggest spreads of COVID, in the world, really. And so it would kind of make sense in a weird way that the Miami Marlins would be hit first, I think, in that situation, especially if they're going out and living their lives outside of baseball, which they were. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with football. Football's the next one. So.
Yeah, and I'm a big college football fan, so I'm curious to see how that goes. And I know, like, some conferences are deciding they're going to call it off. Some conferences are still going to go forward and play. And ultimately, I wonder, like, if you think about, like, from a player perspective, like a college football player perspective, are they going to risk their health? Because we still don't know, like, long-term damage to the body the virus could do. Like, someone could be, one of the best players in college football, get the virus, and then have, like, long-term organ damage or something, and then there goes their potential at an NFL career. Like, are they going to want to weigh that risk? It's tough, man. There's no easy solution to it.
You're right, and you think about the eligibility aspect of it, right? Like, so let's say you don't, I'm on a 4-year scholarship. I'm getting ready to go into my junior year, and we just don't have a season this year. Do I have 2 more years of eligibility after that? Do I get, like, how does all that work? And I don't envy the people who have to make these decisions, because anybody who's making in any sort of leadership, you're going to piss people off.
Yeah, and I imagine, like, in that scenario you give, right? Like, it's like you would think the NCAA gives them 2 more years of eligibility, but is the player really going to take that? Like, I mean, at that point, they're going to probably just leave, and if they're of the caliber, they're probably just going to leave and enter the NFL draft as soon as they can in order to try to maximize the amount of time that they're able to play professionally. But
which is fascinating because from an NFL perspective, like, how do you hold a draft? right?
Yeah.
Like, like do you hold a draft and just rank them based off their previous year? Like it's been a year since they played football.
Right.
They could have put on 40 pounds or whatever it may be, because you can't really have face-to-face meetings now. You can have a Zoom meeting. And I've seen a lot of newscasters who have skinny faces and not so skinny down here,
Yeah, I'm gonna start like hiding myself. I'm gonna bring my laptop up like higher and higher so you can't see.
You look good, Gus. You look good.
Thank you.
You look sharp. But yeah, it's such a we live in a crazy time, but a fascinating time. And I think that's, in 5 years from now, I've said that I feel like we're going to look back and we're going to be like, how did that happen? How did that, could you imagine, and I brought this up again previously, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Could you imagine this without social media? Like the idea of, okay, there's this worldwide pandemic going on, but there's no Twitter, there's no Facebook. The internet isn't what it is. This was 20 years ago, and this COVID-19 happened. How would the world react to this?
That people would probably have their televisions on a lot more, right? Like that's what people used to do. You'd have to like have news on, some 24-hour news channel, trying to get all your updates that way. But not being able but then that's one-way communication. You're only absorbing. You can't like talk with your friends or share information. I mean, how did we used to communicate back in 2000? Would we have to like call each other? Would we like enter IRC and like hang out all day?
Right.
I mean, it's really wild to think about like how different the world was back then. Like, I can't imagine trying to get like 5 or 6 people to have a conversation together. Like now it's like, oh, what do you want to do? You want to hop on Discord? You want to, talk on Zoom? There's like a million different ways to do it. But back then, yeah, I mean, it would be a lot more. I think everyone would have felt a lot more isolated and alone in all of it.
Do you feel okay? Obviously with all the amount of technology we have right now, I think there's always the good old days syndrome from a lot of folks about it was a lot easier back then. I heard that from my parents, and their parents said it as well. But from a communication standpoint, do you prefer the idea of having everybody at your fingertips right now, no matter what, or having to work a little bit, actually having to pick up a phone and a receiver and call their house, and if they're not there, leave a message.
I think I like it more now, because what I like more about now is the aspect of time shifted communication. Right? It's like let's say you and I were going to have a conversation, like outside of this podcast. Let's say you and I were going to have a conversation about something, and you want to reach out to me, and you shoot me a text, right? It's like maybe I can't talk right away, but several minutes later when I have time, I'll be able to give you a response. And maybe it's not a good time for you, but eventually you can respond. So it's like we don't have to be free at the same moment. It's like we can have a conversation in that when we do have time. That way it's not one of us isn't rushed, or we're not like trying to give a quick answer. It's like you can think about it and actually reply in a meaningful way. And I think a lot of people struggle with that concept of time shifted communication. Like I nothing drives me more crazy than when I get a text from someone that's like, "Hey, are you there?" It's like, don't fucking ask me that. Like, this is time shifted. Just say what you're going to say, and then when I can, I'll reply.
I've never heard the term time shifted communication before. Where did this come from?
I don't know. I just made that up right now. Is that not a term?
I've never heard this before. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be like, yeah, Gus. Yeah,
no,
okay,
it just felt like that would be the term for it. Maybe there is a term for it. That's how I view it. It's like it's not real time, right? Because you have real time communication, and then in my mind, it's like the opposite, where the next version would be time shifted.
I just feel like it's so much more the future now that you said that.
I'm gonna shift time.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, dude, this has been really fun. I appreciate you taking some time to spend with us today, and I obviously I always like to allow people the opportunity to tell everybody where they can find you and how they can get a hold of you if they're so inclined.
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at Sorola, which is SOROLA, and as always, you can check out the Rooster Teeth podcast or Black Box Down, which is our aviation disaster podcast.
I'm just gonna say the number one aviation podcast on the internet. Aviation disaster
Probably
podcast.
Maybe number one aviation disaster. I don't know about number one aviation. There's a big community out there.
I love it. All right, man. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you.